Welcome to But Jesus Drank Wine.
And other stories that kept us stuck. I'm Mead.
And I'm Christy.
In this podcast, we'll explore the stories that kept us, stuck, wanting to drink and not wanting to drink all at the same time.
Join us as we show you that freedom from alcohol does not have to mean a life sentence of misery and missing out,
but actually means living an authentic life full of peace, joy, and purpose.
Hi, babe. How are you?
Well, I'm better than you. You sound like you have a little...
Gosh, I can't.
Cool. Again.
I'm sick again. I have a cold again. I had a lurgy teenager coughing in my mouth all weekend. But so if I sound nasally, that's why.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. I was thinking about how when I was stuck in the drinking cycle, how I didn't seem to get sick very often. So this is let me see if I can spit this out in a good way. Since being free from alcohol, I feel like I'm almost getting sick more than when I was stuck in the drinking cycle, but I'm not actually getting sick. It's that I'm so alert. I'm so attuned to just slight changes in my body and my mind and how I'm feeling. I'm paying attention to how I have a sensitivity to that in a good way that I can catch as I'm coming down with something versus when I'm stuck in the drinking cycle where, I would have to be laid out for me to finally be oh, I think I'm sick,
Yeah.
And it's so different now. And it's one of those surprise gifts of being free from alcohol is that I actually can notice when I'm starting to not feel really good and maybe I'm trying to catch something and I can up my vitamin D and my vitamin C and I can be, make sure I get extra sleep and drink more water, those kinds of things that keep me from being, laid out forever. So I rarely get laid out anymore.
Yeah.
Does any of that make sense?
No, it totally makes sense. I feel like when I was drinking, though, I got sick all the time because I was just so run down and I couldn't fight anything. But I understand what you're saying. I feel like you can feel it now. And I knew what was happening, right? So had a sick teenager that wanted to just watch Gilmore Girls for 2 days straight, coughing literally in my face. And I knew it was going to happen. I knew it was going to happen. But you know what? As we said before we hit record, we'll take all the teenage love that we can get. So if it means having a cold for a few days because I got those snuggles and stuff, then I'll take it. I'll take it.
And that's another benefit of being free from alcohol because before, if I had a sick kid, I'd be literally ain't nobody got time for this. And yes, I want to be the mom that is taking care of them, but also I don't want to get sick. Whereas now it's I've never felt healthier. I've never been healthier. And so I am going to take those sick snuggles. And if I get sick, so be it, because I know I'll be okay. I'll be okay. I'll fight it off. There's another angle there of all those surprise gifts.
So good. So true. So good. So true. Well, what are we talking about today, babe?
What are we talking about? So I think this is something that, if you had a dime for every time you heard
all
this.
the time. All the time.
Do we have to say forever when it comes to...
Do you get every single discovery call? Because I do, I think.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's where everybody starts, I think, is because it's that, if I'm committing to doing this work and starting this journey, I need to know ahead of time that I don't have to say forever, maybe. That's the only opening I'm going to have for doing this.
Yeah.
They don't know that yet. I didn't know that yet. But I know that when I was stuck in that drinking cycle, I forever in my model of what you either you didn't have a problem with drinking and you were fine, or you had a problem with drinking and you were a quote unquote alcoholic, and then you had to say you weren't drinking forever and then trying every single day to not drink. That was its own. I consciously did not pay attention to my drinking or want to change my relationship to alcohol for a long time because I thought that it had to be forever. And I'm so glad it's not.
Yeah. And I think it works so well to talk to it from a Christian lens too, is we don't know what the word forever means. We have no idea. We know we have an eternal life. We know we have a place in the kingdom, all of that good stuff. But we don't know what that means or really looks like apart from what we're given. And so to me, it was just like that word is confusing, right? Like it just,
Yeah.
so I love taking the word forever completely off the table because I don't think it's something we can even grasp our mortal minds around, you know?
Yeah. And similarly, if we are Christians and we're living, letting God show us how to be and what to do and letting our lives be guided by God's will for us, then we don't even have to ask questions like that because
Yeah.
God will make it apparent, that like what we should or shouldn't do, continue to do, or whatever. So,
Yeah. Should we talk about like some of the ways that like the word, like this question gets brought up? Because I feel like I've heard it phrased like, well, what about when my son gets married, and the son's like 12.
Yeah.
Like,
yes. Yeah.
What about that future wedding or that future anniversary or that future trip? Like, right. Which is what we as humans like just automatically do because that's what our brains do, right? Is we get really caught up in future big milestone occasions that we think that alcohol is going to somehow enhance. Right.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, I've heard it a lot about like the future stuff. What about you?
Well, yeah, that's exactly right. Because there's that fear of it's the way that those moments have been visualized already for us. It's like alcohol has been a part of that in some way because it speaks to that, that allure or that conditioning that we have around it being necessary for these, special occasions and celebration and all of that. When it's that future space, it's almost a way of like asking that question is almost a way of giving an excuse in a sense not to start the journey, I think.
Oh yeah.
And that's where coaching comes in. It's like, okay, well, what is it about your son's wedding in 100 years that like, how do you want to feel on that day? And what is important about that moment? And how do you see alcohol enhancing that? And is it possible that alcohol could get in the way of that? And how does that affect today? And I mean, of course, this is where all the like the coaching questions come in. But yeah, for sure, that's how I hear it most used. It's like that like thing that's out there in the future. How am I gonna, but what if I want to have it then? Well, you can have it whenever you want it. I can have it whenever I want it. You can, Christy, you can have it whenever you want. We can have alcohol anytime we want to. We just haven't wanted to for a really long time. Praise God.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so true. It's so true. There's always choice, right? There's always choice. And I think a lot of times then the opposite to, well, if I don't have to say forever, then it's one day at a time, right? Which like, let's just really confuse everybody. We also don't love that, right? Because of course it's like one day at a time. However, every single day doesn't have to be a slog and every single day doesn't have to be miserable. And you're not going to be thinking one day at a time forever if you eliminate the way that you view alcohol, right? If you take away all the perceived benefits, which there are many, it doesn't become this like, oh gosh, here we go. I'm waking up. Like you and I don't operate like that, right? Like we don't operate where we wake up and we're like, okay, here's another day, one more day, one day at a time, just barely hanging on.
I could not imagine. That was crazy making to me, that idea. Yeah. And that kept me stuck drinking because I thought it had to be forever. And I thought also at the same time, just taking it one day at a time. Like I had both of those as conditioned beliefs as to like, okay, if I want to change my relationship to alcohol, I'm forced into I have to wait for that rock bottom. Then I'm forced into doing it. And then I have to take it one day at a time, but then I also have to say forever. And it's so not true because to your point, it's not about removing alcohol and it's not about quitting drinking. Okay. Here's the big secret, you guys.
Yeah.
This isn't about quitting drinking.
Yeah.
This is about changing your desire for alcohol. If it is not serving you, if you can, it's the yes and. Yes, I can't imagine never drinking it again. And it's also probably getting in the way of a lot of things in my life. Okay, well, that is a really great starting point to go. You don't have to talk about quitting drinking. This is not about quitting drinking. It is about changing your desire so that therefore there isn't any daily struggle. It's not one moment at a time. I was just out of town with my husband beautiful beach. We had a conference. We went. It was amazing. Everybody's around. There's football games on, on the outdoor bars and the TVs and all on Saturday. Everyone's everybody else is having this, what looks like this amazing time with their cocktails. And I'm sitting there going, oh my gosh, I am so glad that I'm not doing that anymore. I would have absolutely been in that mix. But here we are at this beautiful place with this beautiful beach, and I'm not experiencing that. Like, wow, I'm so glad I don't have to do that. And by the way, I'm sitting around it and everybody's drinking it. And I'm going, do I want that? No. Do I want that? Nope. Like, I can ask that question and not be afraid of the answer. And the answer is always no. It has been for 4 years, right? 3, 4? Yeah, 4 years. That is because I changed my desire to drink. It's not because I quit drinking.
Yeah.
Such a big difference.
Yeah, I love that so much.
I just way went off on a tangent there.
No, you didn't. I loved it. And it reminds me of the Taylor Swift concert. All comes back to Taylor. Because that's exactly how I felt at that concert, right? Like, I looked at the moms around me in the line, the 2-hour merch line, right? Like, who were having the beers delivered to the line. And I'm just thinking to myself, oh my gosh, I'm so glad I don't have to do that anymore. I'm so glad that's not me. Not like, oh my gosh, I have to get through this. Am I going to be able to do it? Like, it looks so good. It doesn't look good.
No, it didn't. You know what? It's so funny. I had this thought this weekend too, as I was like, I love that's like my favorite thing now, is being a fly on the wall, as someone who is like sober-minded, clear-headed, fully present, fully in these situations. I was sitting there thinking about this, the way that they have the bar decorated, the indoor outdoor bar, and all these, fancy bottles. And I was like, what if each of these bottles had a different flavor of cocaine in them?
Yeah.
I was like thinking about, like, what if there was like Bombay cocaine and Tito's cocaine, and, like looking at the whole, like, and all of these fancy glasses that all the things are being poured in. And I'm thinking, wow, this is like the biggest con job of all that big alcohol has done in the fact that, like, everyone wouldn't be sitting around going, yes, I'll take another of the Bombay cocaine, please, over, whatever. Like, that is a drug, and so is alcohol, but it's been packaged up and dressed up to be this fancy, amazing, status-y thing, I think, largely, and then it bites. It hooks you, and there's a bite to it, and you get stuck in that cycle. And I have so much empathy for anybody who is in that place, because I was there. And that's that other piece of it, is like, I have that opportunity as a fly on the wall to like see other people in it and go, gosh, like, I was in that too, but wow, like, this is the biggest con of all of big alcohol.
Yeah, it's so true. And I was actually doing something, I don't know what I was doing. I was writing something, I think, about that today or yesterday, about how, the dopamine smack that we get from alcohol is the same dopamine smack that you get from heroin or cocaine or any other drug out there. It's just, it comes at a different speed, right? And it just works a little bit different in our system because it goes faster, right? And you need, like, the higher is higher, so you need more and all of that stuff. But, like, let's just be clear, it's doing the exact same thing in our body. And alcohol kills more people than all of those other drugs. Although I think didn't fentanyl just, like, kind of come out on top, I think, like, very recently, because that's just horrible. But so to your point, like, it's just a massive con. And I hate talking about, like, the scary stats about that stuff, because I wouldn't want to hear that if I was still drinking a bottle of wine every night, right? I would be like, I would turn off this podcast right now, but don't turn it off. Don't turn it off, because what we're just trying to tell you is, like, we've all been duped, and you've been duped, and I've been duped, and we've all been duped, and it's doing the same thing that all of the other drugs are doing. It just looks pretty. And I'm actually so excited, because one of my former clients, Sam, is going to come on and talk about this later this month for breast cancer awareness, October breast cancer awareness, and how big alcohol pink washes, right? So they make alcohol with the pink breast cancer awareness ribbon on it, have a free cocktail if you can show us your mammogram. She was literally part of these campaigns, and so she's going to come and talk to us later. But let's go back to our topic. What are we talking about?
No, what are we talking about again?
Wait, I had something to say. Okay. So I think the thing about forever, all
Love
over
it.
the place, decongestants are like, decongestants probably, those are like illegal now in the US, aren't they? Like you have to
Yeah.
get them from behind a cabinet.
Yeah.
That's what I'm feeling right now. Is this high from the decongestants.
Yes. You're on fire. Girl. I love it.
Okay, but I think what the fear of forever is
Mhm.
very closely linked to, right, is the fear of failure. And the fear of failure of like, okay, if I can't do
Mhm.
this forever, I'm just going to somehow not do this. I'm going to fail, right? And that's where I always say, what is the goal? And you mentioned this earlier, right? It's not to quit drinking, right? But it's just about how do you want to feel? Like, how do you want to feel? I really don't give a flying Ferrari, as my mother used to say, about how many nights a week you're drinking or how many glasses. I just want you to feel better. That's
Yeah.
what I want you to, that's what I want for you. That's what I want as your goal. Maybe that means more energy and maybe that means more patience with your kids. I don't know what it means for you, but if that's the goal, not only does that make us feel like it's not this behavior-based goal that feels totally unattainable, it's this feeling-based goal that makes us feel, I'm using the word feel a lot, like it feels good, right?
Yeah. Well, and that is going to be the thing that keeps driving you towards not choosing to drink and then getting to that point where you're like, no, I literally have no desire to drink. That is exactly what will fuel you because you feel so good. You want to continue feeling good. It's so different than the feeling of when you're stuck in the drinking cycle. And I go back to like what William Porter said about, which I love. This is probably one of my favorite parts of the book because for a long time I didn't have like language for this, but he makes it so punchy and simple. You know, at a certain point, your drinking becomes just eliminating the noise in your head that is I don't want to drink, but I do want to drink. And am I going to drink? And how am I going to drink? And how am I going to control it? And how am I going to not drink too much? And all of that. And like, I really want to take a break, but I don't want to take it. Like that is exhausting. At a certain point, the drinking is literally just to shut up that noise. So it's not even at that point meeting those perceived benefits that we have, initially the stories that it helps me relax, it helps me do all those things. It's like, no, literally, I just need it to stop the noise that I have in my head. We don't see that as the thing that is continuing, to push along. But once you start to, when it is not a part of your life anymore and you don't have a desire to drink it, like you feel so good and you're like, why the heck would I drink ever again? Like truly, it's like, instead of like, do we have to say forever? We should say like, I get to say forever because I can't imagine a time that I would ever say that I would choose that again. But also at the same time, maybe I will. I don't know. And I can if I want to. So there's that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I want to caveat that by saying that like we've had a lot of practice at this, right?
Yes. Yes.
You know what I mean? Like we had a lot of practice of doing all of the things and figuring out if alcohol like made it better, right? We did a lot of that.
Mm-hmm.
We've done a lot of living our lives in the last 3/4 years, so that we know this. And it takes time to know that, right? And so that's why the grace and the compassion and the curiosity and the exploration and the experimental mindset of all of this stuff is just so, so key, because if you're exploring this for the first time and you have a drink, that's not a failure, right? You didn't fail the no drinking goal, right? You're still learning, you're still growing. I mean, I know we've used this analogy 100 times, but this is yours, by the way, if you fell during a marathon, right? Would you go back to the start line? Would you quit? No, you get up and you keep going.
So if your goal is to change your desire, which really leads to freedom, if that's the thing, I love asking, clients on a discovery call, like, what is your idea of freedom from alcohol? Like, what does that look like? What does that feel like? What does that mean? And if it's just that behavior-based thing, it's that opportunity to go a little bit further with that. Because if it is just the behavior-based, then yes, it's understandable why you would think, okay, now I drank today, and so I have to start from scratch again. But no, like when we zoom out and realize it's not about, and that was something that hit me. I'm like, and side note, that is something that hit me when I was really first discovering this. I was like, it's not that I want to quit drinking, because I was carrying both that, like, actually, I still want to drink. It's that when I took those breaks, I was still thinking about alcohol and when I could drink it again. I wasn't drinking for those breaks. And I was still miserable. It's that I wanted to not want to drink it.
Yeah.
And that's where, remaining focused on if that, everyone I've worked with it to this point, it's freedom from alcohol is some version of wanting not to want to drink, wanting to not want to drink. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that so much. It's so true.
So shout out to Pastor David from some of our earlier pods. But he in a sermon, I forget when this was, it doesn't matter, it's irrelevant when it was, but he talked about how information and application equal transformation. And I thought about how true that is of the, freedom from alcohol journey. It's like we can take in the new information, so we can read the books and we can learn and we can watch the, videos. And those are all really important and really, really valuable. Like I didn't know the way that alcohol affected my mind and my body and my brain. And I had no idea. That was all very valuable, but that wasn't enough for me to change my desire to drink alcohol. I had to take that information and I had to apply it in some way. And that's where I always talk about the experiential knowledge that we gain. So we have our head knowledge and then we have this experiential knowledge or that application piece where it's like, I get to go out and be in a setting, where everybody's drinking at this, beautiful place. And I'm like, do I want to do that? No, I don't. I have zero desire to do that. It has taken lots of reps of that to lock that in as true for me. But that's the beauty of like doing this work and having support while doing it. That's the other thing that I think is worth mentioning here, whether it's, one-to-one with a coach or in a community where other people kind of get it. But like having that support of like, I'm walking through this, not necessarily where I am right now, because I literally haven't had a desire or temptation to drink in 4 years. But when you're starting out free from alcohol, like having that place to come back to and be like, you know what? Like, this is what I experienced this weekend. And wow, I'm actually starting to see that what I've learned about alcohol, even if it's through a growth point, like, yeah, I chose to drink tonight. And it didn't do what I thought it would do. And because I kept my mind open to it, like that experimental mindset is so invaluable. It's the same thing you would do if you were trying like a new workout or a new sport or something. Like, I'm going to go try pickleball. Maybe I'll like it. Maybe I won't. Maybe it'll serve me. Maybe it won't. I don't know. I get to decide. I'll try it. Okay. Yeah, I kind of like it. Maybe I'll keep doing it. At some point too, we also, I think, make the alcohol thing such a big deal. And it is. And it's also not. It's like, if we could just look at it from the lens of like zoom way out and say, yeah, how is it serving me? How is it not serving me? What are those perceived benefits? And does it actually do that? That kind of experiential knowledge that we gain from that is going to pay dividends. It's going to lead to transformation of some sort. Now, Pastor David's was more about, becoming more in Christ likeness, obviously. But similarly, I think it's really true of this journey that is the freedom from alcohol journey, having both of those.
Yeah. When you said the thing about pickleball, I was just thinking that like that's actually, I feel like never how I ever approached any sort of like new learning in whether it was sport or anything, because it was always from the diet mentality, right? And so I feel like they're so linked, right? Because when you go into like, right, it's the same thing. There's so many correlations between eating and dieting and quitting drinking. Like it's just wild to me. And it also comes up with so many women I coach. But there's this whole idea, right, of like, you have to deprive. You can't eat the thing that you really want, because the thing that you really want, whether it's a brownie or a bagel or whatever it is, because that thing is so good and it holds so much benefit, because it's the same thing, right? Dopamine receptors flying off. But if you can go to it from like, I just want to feel better, ditch the goal of like weighing a certain amount, ditch the goal of what aesthetically you look like and just how you want to feel, like that can be huge too in the whole dieting thing, right? Like it's just like, if you eat the bagel and it makes you feel bad, then you're not going to eat it if you know that there's like, it just doesn't make you feel good, right? It's just a whole different mindset. Like when I stopped drinking, I totally changed the way I viewed like dieting and food and all of that stuff. And I really applied a lot of what I learned, like in doing this work into that work. Right. And it's just like, oh, yeah,
100%.
no, this really doesn't make me feel good. Like, I am not like a holier than thou, like crazy health goddess by any stretch. Do not get me wrong. But I've been trying to be better about my sugar. And I went to a girlfriend's 40th birthday on Friday and there was gluten-free cake. And I was like, yes, please. I will definitely have a piece of cake. Right. And I felt so jittery after. Like I literally I could barely drive because like the sugar just like smacked me. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is what it feels. It was like a total growth point for me. I was like, this is what it feels like when you eat a massive amount of sugar, when you've like not had it for a while. This is how it makes you feel, right? Like,
Yes.
so is the birthday, and please don't come for me, but like, is the birthday cake really a treat then, right? Like,
Yeah.
maybe I should have had half. I don't know. Maybe next time I will share a slice with someone. I don't know. I'm just learning and growing, but I think there's so many parallels. Does that make sense, or am I making no sense?
No, it does, because no, I can totally relate to that, because you're exactly right. Like, so like my pickleball example, when I was stuck in the drinking cycle, I would have said, I'm not doing pickleball, even though that might sound like fun. It would not burn enough calories. It would not, fit the goal of the weight loss and the, the firming and the toning and all of that. In my head, it would be unless I'm on the verge of throwing up from a workout, like that's the sign of a good workout. It's the same. Whereas like now, that whole one of the other amazing gifts of being free from alcohol is that like I get to ask those questions that I never knew I could ask before, and just even asking those questions, there's so much value in that, because again, it puts you in that place of like being able to choose for yourself. And so you chose that piece of cake. It's not like you just happened to eat it. Like that's a different feeling than I chose it. Now I get to see like, how does it feel? Well, it didn't make me feel so good. Okay, so maybe I'll do it differently next time. Maybe I won't. Whereas, like for being out of town this week at the beach, I had the old story that said you should go into the fitness center to get a real workout, because a walk on the beach is not going to be as good. And this is a story that I wouldn't have even had before. It would have been a like, no question, no brainer. I have to hit that fitness center and get my workout, my hardcore workout in. And it was funny that it crept back up, because it's been a while since I've had that old story. And I was like, wait a minute, like what is the purpose of moving my body now? It's not for, all of those things I was so tightly wound around before. It was, I'm at this beautiful place. There's a beach. No, like it feels more enjoyable to be outside in nature. If I want to start running, I'll start running. If I don't, I'll continue walking. Like the goal is different. To your point, from earlier, if it's not a behavior-based goal or a, aesthetic, like how we want to look goal, and it's more about how we want to feel, that's the beauty of being able to ask those questions and not beat ourselves up when it's like, okay, well, yeah, I did go into the fitness and whatever, and it was fine. But
Yeah. I think another reason that the forever thing freaks people out is the fact that if you're not drinking forever, you have to be constantly on guard, right? Like, and I think when you stop drinking, so many things open up, right? And you learn how to do so many things, and you learn how to set boundaries, and you learn what you enjoy, and you learn where you want to be and who you want to spend time with and how you want to spend your money and all these things. And if you're at the beginning of this journey right now, then you're like, Christy, what are you talking about? But just trust me.
Yeah.
Like you get to a point where like you do, right? You start designing a life that you love, and you start hanging around people that like you really enjoy, and you're really intentional about who you spend time with. And so in addition to that, because you're practicing all the time and you have so much you've learned, right? Like you get good at like being really confident in this, right? And so I'm just here to say today that is not a thing, right? Like you don't have to be on guard all the time. Like you're not going to feel that weirdness, right? Of somebody like second guessing you when you order the mocktail at the bar or wherever forever, because you just get to a point where like you're so confident in your response, and you're so surrounded by the people that probably aren't going to second guess you anyway, then it's not, right? Your life just changes like that. I'll never forget, we were sitting at a members club here at the arts club, I think like maybe a year ago, I don't know. And I was with a group of girls that were at the same barbecue where I first like came out, so to speak, with my like, I'm not drinking, right? And everyone was like, what do you mean? And like, oh my gosh. And like, but you're drinking Diet Coke. That gives you cancer, Matt.
And you're like, you're going to get breast cancer. Don't.
And I was literally telling everyone that they were going to die from all the things. But the way that my life has changed, right? Like, it's just like, it rolled off my tongue. It was no big deal. I opened the mocktail list, ordered it. Nobody said a thing, right? And of course, these are good friends, so they get it by now. But it's also, I remember feeling so confident and assured in that moment that like, they could have done it again. They could have done it again, and I would have like handled it so differently. You know what I mean?
Totally. And that's something that I think is really, I remember we had Jeff Salzy on the pod, and he was saying this too. Like, that's something that I think is really hard at the beginning to see that is going, that is possible. It's that confidence, because I never would have imagined that I would be in a place where like, I almost like shout from the rooftops, like, hey, I'll take the strawberry mule, but no alcohol. Like, instead of being like, hey, can I have the virgin strawberry mule? Like, where no one would hear me. I'm like, hey, it has no alcohol, right? Okay, good. Like, I don't want that. Yeah. But like, I can be a little obnoxious about it. That's a little bit of an exaggeration, but because anyway, whatever. But that's something that comes with the reps, with the practice, with the experiential knowledge, with the time that you're like going through going, no, I really do feel so good, because it's almost, did you feel like this? Like, finding freedom from alcohol was like this giant, I always talk about it, I've said this publicly before, I thought it was like the last piece of my puzzle, like the missing piece, but it really was like this like giant wake up to my life, to like all that, like it's, and this is where I'll say that it's, it's about the alcohol, but it's not about the alcohol in a good way, where the alcohol was just making it really easy to stay stuck and on autopilot and just like robotic and reactive and just always in defense mode and just, whatever, the rules and the rigidity, all of that. And whereas freedom from alcohol has led me to that place of the confidence in like, this is what I want, or this is what I don't want, and I'm okay with that. And if it makes me different and I get to question, I get to say myself like, what I want to drink. Why would I add 2 to 3 ounces of ethanol to my strawberry mule? Like, that's insanity to me now. But that was so foreign to me 4 years ago. It would have, I did not get it. And so, I have so much empathy for people starting that. And
when you said that, I was just wondering like if that's how like we also like got like back on fire for Jesus and realigned with our faith, right? Because it was just like so kind of the same in that way. And I want to do an episode on that all together, like about how there is so much, sober curiosity and being curious about God or Jesus or Christianity is like so similar, right? Because you kind of have to just like abandon everything that you think that you know and figure out what is really, really true.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. You get to ask those questions. Like, who knew there was a way of being in life where you've got to ask questions and you got to live with intention and choice, and you get to like look at those beliefs, whatever they are. That was one of the things that I think I was scared of, because I'd heard, and then you start to question everything, and that can be kind of scary. And it's like, no, that's where all the goodness comes, because it led me right into, a deeper relationship with Jesus that I never could have imagined.
Same.
Whereas before it was just something else on my to-do list, like everything else that I just had to kind of get through. And that, that's a really good point. It's the curiosity, right?
Yeah. It's the curiosity, but it's also just, it's so great that we actually then do have like, we talk about like finding out what's true. Like as Christians, we get to we get to hold it in our hands, right? Like we have the Bible, like we have it, like we have the truth. We were just like, I'm not gonna speak for you. I'll speak for me, like ignoring it for a really long time, right? Like,
No, you can speak for me. That's so true. Yeah, that's so
Yeah.
true.
Oh my gosh, again. Yeah, it is really good.
It is, but to your point too, like it is something that, well, maybe this wasn't your point, but I'll make it mine. My next little sidebar here, all in our own way. Like I think that's what when we can kind of look at this too, is like I feel like for me, if I reflect back on like my whole last 5-6 years, I can see where alcohol had to hit that max pain point for me, where because when I first started this like journey, so to speak, I was sure it was not alcohol that was the cause of. I was willing to do anything else but look at how
Yeah.
wine was taking up so much space in my life. Then I finally got to the point where I was like, wait, it's not just drinking on weekends anymore. It's now weekends include Thursday and Sunday, and now weekends include Wednesday and Tuesday and Monday. And oh gosh, now I'm drinking every night. And as long as it's not the whole bottle, but oh my gosh, what about the nights when it is more than a bottle? Like once it really finally hit that pain point, that's when I, had that moment. Everybody work, school, and I fell to my knees and said, God, like, okay, I've been trying to do it my way. Can you please take over? Like, I know you're here and you've been waiting for me to like surrender that control to you, as if I had control, and asking for help, which then led like opening the door to being able to look at all of my beliefs and reaffirm them with the Bible. Like I had to kind of do that as like a warm up, or in a sense, with alcohol first. Like, let me learn about the truth of alcohol. Like, what does it do? And then let me get that experiential knowledge. I've been on the same journey with that's deepened my faith more in the last 3 years than the whole rest of my life combined, because I've gotten more information. I've, spent more time in my Bible learning about God, about who he is, about who he says I am, and about my, the plan for my life and all of that. And I'm getting that experiential knowledge being around people who also keep pointing me to Jesus and who live from and for Jesus. And for me, my journey, I can see where like maybe alcohol was the beginning. It was not that last piece that set everything into place and provided my PEACE. It was literally like the first piece that led to the bigger piece that comes from, knowing and being known by God.
Yeah, I always think of it as like the first domino, right? In like a good way. Like once the alcohol like domino fell, all the other ones it opened it up for that.
Yeah, and I was going to say too, so when we talk about like do we have to save forever? It's almost like it goes back to that, how we coach people around like, no, like we get to do this. Like we get to do this work as a result. So you can say whatever. No, you don't have to say forever. You can't say forever. It's up to you. How does it feel each way to say that? Like, explore it for yourself.
Yeah. We're never telling you what to do, guys, ladies and gentlemen. Are there any gentlemen here? I don't know. Ladies, we're not telling you ever what to do. We're just telling you what's worked for us. So if you want to say forever out of the gate, then do it.
Yeah.
But if it scares the bejeebies out of you, what is a bejeebie? I don't know. Then don't use it. Sorry.
Yeah, then don't. And maybe you'll get to a place like we are where we're like, yeah, no, I get to live like this forever. Oh my gosh. Like I get to live free from the desire from alcohol. I mean, how amazing. And I get to experience all the abundance of life walking with Jesus in a different, renewed, amazing way than I ever did before. I mean, what could be better?
I love that so much. I was just going to like kind of wrap us up, go back to like the whole idea of like FOMO for a bit, because I also think it's so helpful to mention that like if the fear of forever is because of the missing out on a future occasion, because you haven't tackled that benefit that you still really hold to be true as the sky is blue about alcohol, right? Like if I can say anything to help, if you're on this journey and you're really looking at this, right? You're listening to this podcast, you're reading stuff, like you really want to like throw the book at this. and you're working on it, then you have no idea how you're going to feel at your son's wedding in 150 years. You know what I mean? You have no idea what you're going to, but seriously, you don't have any idea how you're really going to feel or what you're really going to know. And, what real experiential knowledge you're going to have in even like a couple weeks, right? You just don't know. So it's just like, take the FOMO, take the fear of like whatever the future thing is that you're freaked out about off the table, because you literally have no idea, right? How you're going to feel. I had a client recently that did a really big, like amazing vacation. I think it was a 50th anniversary party. And I think she maybe had gone and had like a drink, right? But it was a dramatic change in her drinking, dramatic. And I said to her, I was like, did you ever in a million gajillion years think that that's how that was going to go? That you had maybe the one glass of champagne and then decided it wasn't really doing it for you, and then you had a really awesome night. And she was like, not in a million years. I'm obviously paraphrasing and like changing the details to protect client confidentiality here, but that was the point, right? It's like, never in a million gajillion years would I ever think that I would have felt that way at that party.
Oh, that is so good. I know. Yeah, like it's that question of like, what is possible? We're so sure that we're going to miss out. We're so sure that it's going to be a daily slog. We're so sure that we're really going to want that glass of champagne at our son's wedding in 100 years. But is it also possible that none of those things will be true? I mean,
yeah.
And I mean, having that experience, that going into something with that mindset of choice. And this is one thing I always say to my clients. I'm like, let's do, regardless of what you want alcohol to look like in your life, like, let's do whatever we do from a place of choice, not just that autopilot. So that's generally like that first step in starting that journey when we start coaching together. It's choosing to drink versus that automatic. Like for me, it was always that easy button. There was a point where I wasn't even just choosing it, like literally the wine was choosing me. And so even just starting from that place of like, okay, like I'm going to pay attention to this. I'm going to ask myself questions. I'm going to be mindful while I do this, because at any point I get to say, yes, this is working for me and I don't want to do it anymore, or I don't want to have another glass, or whatever it is. Like if you're coming from that place of curiosity, it keeps you in that place of being able to choose it consciously, mindfully, with intention. So even if you find yourself, I mean, maybe me in 30 years when my son is getting married, well, I can ask the same question that I mean, I wouldn't always say do this, but I love going, okay, like, am I really just trying not to drink, or do I really not want this? That's why I always ask, like in situations where I was this weekend where I was like, do I want that? Nope, still don't want that. Okay, cool. Awesome. Maybe in 30 years, at my son's wedding, will I go, do I want this? Oh, I can have that if I want. And either I will or I won't, depending on if I want it or not. But if you're not even asking the question and you're just automatically hitting that easy button, like that is a place that leads to nowhere for sure. That was a place that I was headed and I was stuck in for a while there at the end.
Yeah. Well, let's do our Tiny Tinas. My Tiny Tina is, if you're getting really tripping up over the whole forever thing, then redefine the goal, right? Go back and redefine the goal and make it a goal based on how you want to feel, not about how much you want to drink. And grace, compassion, and curiosity. Always, forever. What's yours?
Legit, I don't have one. That is perfect.
Stop it.
I know. This is a record. This is a history making. That's amazing. I love it. It's perfect.
I love it.
End it on that.
Amazing. Well, thank you, ladies, for listening. We will see you next Monday. And there's a form in the show notes. If you ever want to get in touch with either of us, there's a form there. And we'd love to hear from you.
We'd love to hear what questions y'all have. Yeah. And if you have a burning question about what this looks like, and whatever, like we will spill all. So
yes,
send us a message.
We are open books. And if there's an episode you want us to record on, if there's something we haven't touched on yet, if there's a guest you want us to get, like, we're going to try.
Yeah.
So, yeah, put it in the form.
Thank y'all for listening.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for joining us again this week. You can find all of our episodes at butjesusdrankwine.com. And make sure you follow us over on the gram at Love Life Sober with Christy and Mead at I'm Not Sober, I'm Free.
To learn more about what we do, you can visit our websites at meadhollandshirley.com and lovelifesober.com.
Take a screenshot of this podcast and share it with a friend or two.
And don't forget to subscribe so you don't have to worry about missing a single episode. And if you love what we're doing, please leave us a review on Apple or Spotify.
This helps more women who are feeling stuck and alone in the overdrinking cycle to find hope and encouragement.
Thanks, ladies. We so appreciate you. We'll see you next week.